Okay, guys. So, what I got here is a video from Second Thought. It says why the Democrats never get anything done. I just now discovered this. It came out a day ago, and so shout out to Second Thought, man. I discovered them through Savvy Sab. She played videos from them. I think she interviewed the guy that behind Second Thought too, which is cool. So yeah, I'm finna play this video, guys, and I'm finna pause it and give my thoughts in between. I'm not gonna play the whole thing. I'll probably play like 7 8 minutes of it. If you wanna watch the rest of it yourself, it's called go the Second Thought. Search Second Thought on YouTube, and it should be the first video that pops up on the for you tab. So here we go.
100% viewer-funded operation. If you'd like to help support the channel and get some great perks while you're at it, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/secondthought. Hey, isn't it weird how every time Congress is about to pass some decently progressive bill, there's always one or two Democrats suddenly ready to come out of the shadows and tip the scales against it? It's not a coincidence.
Yeah, they called the damn what's they call that person like Christian Cinema and Joe Manchin, the villain, some kind of villain. Fuck, my brain ain't working today. Excuse me, guys.
And as much as Biden complains about it, he actually prefers it that way. "2024 is an election year, and unfortunately for Biden, his approval rating is in the toilet. I won't go through his whole track record, but just to refresh your memory, Biden promised a $15 minimum wage. Didn't deliver. He promised to enshrine the federal right to abortion. Didn't do that either. He promised to cancel about $10,000 of student debt per person, and ultimately came in way under that number. And then, of course, you have the recent stuff with the southern border, where Biden's being far more xenophobic and draconian than most Republicans, even after calling Trump out for the same thing and promising to put a stop to the border wall, which he also didn't do. You get the picture, but politicians never keep their promises, so no one's really surprised. Even now, as we're hearing the Biden campaign make basically the same promises because, trust me, this time is going to be totally different. They just needed more time. Now that he's on the campaign trail, Biden is mostly pinning the blame for this sort of stuff on Republicans. It's time to rally every last Democratic voter behind him, and with a solidly Republican House and a sort of blue Senate at the moment, the reason things like that border bill didn't get through was because it was blocked by a strong Republican opposition. So it makes sense that Biden is really keen on making them look like obstructionists. But that really doesn't explain all the
Craziest thing about that is Biden is a Republican with a blue tie on. That's the only difference. Like just a blue tie. He's a Republican. Like Biden don't want this stuff. He just says it to fool the masses.
broken promises. For about 2 years, Biden and the Democrats had all the power you can get in American politics. The presidency, the Senate, and the House. Everything swung blue in 2021. People elected Biden on a pretty tame set of progressive promises, ostensibly gave him and the Dems all the...
The crazy thing is, Biden was supposed to destroy Trump in an election and badly beat him. Like, if that don't show you something, then I don't know what else does.
levers of power to make them happen and a good chunk of time to deliver. And instead, we got years of disappointment, watered-down proposals, and a "we believe in climate change" Democratic Party that's somehow still churning out alarming numbers of new fossil fuel permits. And to explain
The Willow Project.
all that, we heard a very familiar excuse. Back in 2021, for example, Biden said this.
I hear all the folks on TV saying, why doesn't Biden get this done? Well, because Biden only has a majority of effectively 4 votes in the House and a tie in the Senate, with 2 members of the Senate who vote more with my Republican friends. But we're not giving up.
It's nothing we haven't heard before. When progressive bills die in the Senate, the story is always more or less the same. Liberal outlets and Twitter accounts start blasting whoever it was that flipped the last vote, whether that's a Manchin or a Sinema. Biden...
The rotating villain. See, my brain start working. They call these people the rotating villain on your screen right here. Christian Cinema, which now is an independent, I guess. Oh, hell, is he still in there? I guess she is, and Joe Manchin, who's supposed to have run as a independent candidate for some other party, but I guess that fell to the wayside.
Biden delivers a passionate, somebody really should do something about this, not me speech. And that's either the last you ever hear about it, or 10 months later the bill has a new name, $10 billion in extra defense spending tacked on, and hardly anything left from the original. This sort of thing has been happening for a long time, and it's not without consequence. If you've been following politics for a bit longer, you might remember guys like Joe Lieberman, who, like Manchin today, sort of made being the Democratic Party's rotating villain his whole personality. He's dead now. If you don't remember him, Lieberman...
Joe Lieberman. The guy that Obama blamed for not codifying Roe v. Wade and other things that, even though they had a fucking supermajority under Obama's first term, boy, I remember those days.
Lieberman was famous for a few things. Being aggressively pro-Iraq war until the day he died, and back in 2009, rejecting Obama's plan to include a public option in Obamacare. The public option would have been a federal health insurance system that could compete against private insurance and drive prices down. In very simple terms, it would have made healthcare cheaper and made private insurers lose money. It's not quite abolishing private insurance the way Bernie's Medicare for All plan would have, but still, it was something. Anyway, in 2009, the Democrats had the votes in the Senate to pass the ACA with a public option provision included. Most Democratic voters and most Americans were in favor. And suddenly, right before the vote, in comes Lieberman, vocally opposing the public option, threatening a filibuster. And because he was the deciding vote, ultimately forcing the ACA to be drafted without it. The public realized what was going on, that...
Lieberman, the rotating villain. He was a rotating villain for Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. Yeah, it's always one. Yeah. Yeah, it's always fucking one, you know. That's by design, by the way, guys. It's by design.
Even if Lieberman could block a vote by being a dissident and preventing the Democrats from having the 60 votes they needed, like the Republicans under Bush, the Democrats could use reconciliation to pass the ACA with a public option with only 50 votes. Then, once again, out of the woodwork comes Jay Rockefeller, another Democrat-aligned senator suddenly reversing months of his own pro-public option rhetoric and refusing to vote for it because, well, the timing isn't very good. Why wasn't the timing very good? Well, because the timing allowed...
Because the Democrats don't want to pass it. That's why the timing isn't very good. You know, when it comes to the poor man, yeah, let's wait on it. You know, it ain't the right time. It's never the right time. It's never the right time. But, you know, when it comes to funding Israel and Ukraine, you know, oh, they get that shit through the shit. Boy, they get that shit through the fucking cracks so quick.
The Democrats to actually exercise power in a way that would have benefited their constituents. Typically, that's good. But for the Democrats, these are very bad circumstances because they forced them to either find people willing to go back on their word or actually follow through on their promise. So, why does this happen? Why do we always seem to have these obstructionists within the country's major left party blocking even mild center-left
I like you said left. Yeah, Democrats aren't left.
policies? On some level, there's an obvious answer.
Center right.
And like in most American politics, that answer is lobbying. Take Lieberman. Over his career, insurance companies had contributed nearly $500,000 to his campaigns. Pharmaceutical companies almost certainly played a role too, with Lieberman's wife having several jobs in lobbying firms known for being cozy with Big Pharma, and that would have benefited from Lieberman's obstruction. The same goes, obviously, for guys like Joe Manchin, who's well known for being staunchly pro-fossil fuels and killing every bill that would lessen the US's reliance on them. Between 2017 and 2022, he was...
Again, some of you guys that are new, probably new to politics, just the way things work. This is why the Democrats never get anything done, because they listen to their donors. Like, they listen to their donors. They don't listen to you. They want you to go and vote and shut up. They don't want you to say nothing while they, you know, have fundraisers with their donors, you know, and shit. Yeah, the whole nine.
Was the #1 recipient of oil and gas and auto industry money to the tune of several $1 million. And you can say the same about centrist Democrats in the House. Earlier this year, 8 House Democrats asked Biden to lift a pause on liquefied natural gas export permit approvals. According to Jacobin, 4 of them received more than $1.6 million in oil and gas donations, and the other 4 got more than $300,000 from the energy and natural resources industry. This flies in the face.
See? You think Democrats give a fuck about climate change? No, they fucking don't. They, cause most of these 8 motherfucking Democrats gonna be dead before, as they say, shit hits the fan as it is. But they just want to live their life in leisure, while the younger generation fucking suffer and die. Die of climate change. Well, they be peacefully dead. No, they won't be peacefully. They be peacefully in hell. But you know what I'm saying.
Of a Democratic Party that is very publicly outspoken that climate change is an existential threat. But those examples are all very direct, somewhat out in the open campaign donations. If receiving money from lobbying groups while in government doesn't sound like enough of an incentive, there's always the reassurance of the revolving door. See, being despised by your party might make your seat a little less stable, might make your party more reluctant to select you for candidacy for your state, and might generally attract a lot of hate you might not want to endure for decades. For those who don't like being public targets, there's always the option of bowing out and getting just a regular lobbying gig where the connections you made in Congress are incredibly valuable. And sure enough, roughly 60% of retired lawmakers land in jobs where they end up influencing federal policy for significant salaries, at least in the exiting class of 2019. That's the case for Joe Donnelly, a conservative Democrat named as a partner in 2019, his centrist friend Doug Jones, and your favorite, Joe Lieberman, who left office back in 2013.
Hey, you remember Doug Jones, Alabama? Yeah, I remember that motherfucker.
This possibility to cash out by staying cozy with corporate lobbyists matters.
And one thing crazy about these politicians, once they retire, they get a cozy ass lobbying job. I think Christian Cinema a lobbyist now, ain't she? I guess. Oh boy.
To conservative Democrats. How do we know that? Because none other than Joe Manchin told us so back in 2021, when he opposed the For the People Act that would have slowed down this revolving door and made it harder for congresspeople to become federal influences. Manchin wrote his own version of the bill that cut that specific ethics provision and would set up him and his centrist buddies for the foreseeable future. But let's get back to Lieberman for a second, because the especially egregious cases of this lobbying influence are probably best represented by his group, No Labels. No Labels is a non-profit/political party started in 2010 with the purpose of bringing together centrists and moderates in the US to grab seats.
This the one that Joe Manchin was supposed to run for president. This quote-unquote party, No Labels, yeah.
From progressives. Their rhetoric is predictably uninspired, and mostly characterized by calling themselves representatives of the common sense majority, while throwing everybody who doesn't work with them under the extreme header, in a country with 2 nearly identical parties. Anyway, No Labels doesn't publicly reveal who its donors are. As a nonprofit, that's technically allowed, if a little weird. But the problem for them is that hasn't stopped journalists from figuring this stuff out. And as you probably expect, well, it's a lot of classic Republican donors who would not be disappointed at all with having a few spoilers in the ranks of those who caucus with Democrats. Louis Bacon, a regular GOP donor, gave No Labels about $1 million to elect more centrists, for example. James Murdoch, former chief executive of 21st Century Fox, the parent company of Fox News, put in at least $500,000. Nelson Peltz, a big Trump donor, put nearly $900K into the No Labels super PAC. I think you get the idea. According to Open Secrets, No Labels has something like 8.
So basically, No Labels is just a full, I guess, centrist Republicans. Yeah, of course, right? Yeah. Pretty sure some centrist dummies donate too.
Super PACs playing with several $1 million. And frankly, those 3 names barely scratch the surface. There's a lot of demand for people willing to act as spoilers to aid the Republicans, and centrists have a lot to gain from playing that role. But if you're like me, this explanation doesn't feel complete. It's not that lobbying doesn't matter. You can always find deep wells of corporate money going to these centrists and flipping their votes, but it's just not the full picture. It doesn't explain what's in it for the Democratic Party, who, by all accounts, not only let this happen, but actively play a role in keeping it going. So Why doesn't just pointing to lobbying feel like enough? For starters, conservative Democrats don't always get the most campaign donations, from corporations or in general. If the only explanation I gave you for why are they like this was money, that little piece of evidence would pretty much crush my whole argument. There's other ways to make money than to be a self-interested fence-sitter, and plenty of Democrats get just as healthy a check from being regular partisans. Oftentimes, though, you'll hear that the explanation for rotating villains has something to do with the villain of the week's constituents. If some Democrats are more conservative, the conventional narrative is that they're probably just a better representative of a more conservative district or state. But that's not what the voting records show. Take a look at Glusenkamp Perez from Washington. She's part of a group of conservative Democrats called the Blue Dog Coalition, and beyond how lame calling yourself a
The Blue Dogs. Oh, Blue Dogs. A few more minutes and I'm gonna change this, guys.
Blue Dog is, you might remember her from her time in the villain seat as a vocal opponent of student loan forgiveness. Quote, she was one of just 2 Democrats to vote for a proposal that would have thrown out the entirety of President Joe Biden's student debt relief plan, and would have also retroactively reinstated interest payments and reinstated some already forgiven loans. Since joining Congress in January 2023, she's voted with Republicans more than most of her Democratic colleagues, according to Slate. And especially surprising for a Democrat, that included voting for a Republican NDA.
Capping into here, guys. Yeah, see? That's rotating villain effect. She's from Washington, but again, like, I'm just saying, like, this is the goal, man. They want a Republican dummy, basically. Yeah, guys. So if you want to watch the rest of that, I say check it out, man. It's why the Democrats never get anything done by second thought. Yeah, check him out on YouTube, man. He does great work. I'm not gonna play his whole video out of respect. So watch it yourself and comment and tell him the ATP network sent you.